In England, a worried mother takes her young son to the airport in the hope that he will leave the country soon. A frightening virus is spreading through many countries, and doctors cannot find a cure. With all this happening, people are trying to find safety elsewhere. England is imposing quarantine, not letting infected people leave to prevent the virus from spreading. The mother is driving, hoping that they will let her healthy son board the plane. His father, who is a pilot helping with evacuations, is in control. The soldiers are checking all travelers very carefully and discover a sick person hidden in the trunk of a car nearby and kill them. The mother is desperate and offers a lot of money to ensure that her son can get through, even knowing that she cannot go because of a tumor caused by the virus. Facing a soldier's gun pointed at her, she begs, asking to ensure that her son is okay and pleading for the soldier to take him to his father. As the soldiers hold her back, the boy runs toward the airport gates, hoping to get through. But when he arrives there, the last departing plane has already left, leaving him alone. In the last news they heard, they said there would be no more evacuations. They told those who are sick to stay home and not try to leave the country. This disease that is spreading has no cure. People get very sick with high fever, their skin changes color, they feel nauseous, and their organs stop working. Unfortunately, the medicines they tried did not work against this disease, and those who were left behind when the departing plane left have no chance of survival. Hey, what would you do if a fatal virus that has no cure started spreading in your country? The movie I'm going to summarize is called The Carrier. It's an action, fiction, horror, and suspense film. It's a very interesting movie about survival, worth watching. That's why I'm inviting you to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. A group of 11 people are heading to Greenland because they heard that they are immune to the disease there, and that they are making a vaccine for it. The plane is being piloted by the main pilot, Tobias, and his assistant, David. David is going through a difficult situation because his son couldn't get into the airport. Also on board are the people who take care of passengers on the plane: Craig, Kate, Eric, and Larry, who is the mechanic. There's also a couple, Maria and Kevin. But there's a mess going on down on the ground, which makes it impossible for the plane to land. Mid-flight, they discover that some infected people snuck onto the plane. Eric, who is a flight attendant just like the other one, starts checking who is well and who is sick, separating those who are healthy in the fancy part of the plane. After learning this, Craig talks to the pilot Tobias, but the co-pilot David has disappeared without explanation. Eric continues checking everyone and finds Jess, who is showing symptoms of the disease. Then Eric gets angry and starts beating her and her husband James, who is healthy and is defending his wife. Unfortunately, their teenage son is also infected. Larry, the man who fixes machines, accidentally gets sick after touching the boy. But Eric doesn't notice this happening. Eric decides to put the sick people in the simpler part of the plane so that they don't spread the disease to them. Larry, desperate to stop the disease, looks for something to cut off the hand that is infected. As he doesn't find anything, he decides to drink alcohol, while Craig and Kate clean tools to cut off his arm. Even though Eric doesn't really believe it, they decide to go ahead and cut off Larry's arm to try to stop the disease. Eric insists that Larry has to leave the plane to prevent more people from getting sick during the flight. Suddenly, the plane starts shaking a lot. Tobias, who is piloting alone because the other pilot disappeared, urgently needs help. Kate takes control after carefully listening to the captain's instructions. Together, they manage to control the plane amid the confusion, keeping it stable during an unexpected change of direction. Craig finds David near an open door. Things get tense when David blames Tobias for leaving hastily without his son. His son is the boy from the beginning of the film. David didn't want to leave without his family, but Tobias didn't care about that. David makes a brave decision and jumps from the plane. When Craig tells this to Tobias, the captain is very sad about the loss of his friend. Eric, seeing an opportunity, goes to the cockpit and asks Tobias to land the plane to get rid of the infected. But Tobias strongly opposes, saying that it is not feasible to land amid the dense smoke and dangerous terrain where the infected are being burned. Even under pressure to expel the survivors, Tobias firmly refuses, even if they are infected. Dissatisfied, Eric leaves without getting what he wanted. Sitting where David used to sit, Kate finds his wallet with a moving photo of his wife and son. This discovery brings a touching understanding of David's difficult choice, a gesture made out of very strong love for his family. Shortly after, the passengers see another aircraft in the sky. Tobias contacts Captain Terry, whose flight comes from Australia and is going to Greenland. Terry needs to land urgently, but finding a safe place in Europe is being difficult. In addition, she is tired of flying alone and not having a co-pilot. Tobias kindly suggests that, as they have plenty of food and passenger space, Terry should find a safe place to land so they can continue together in a single aircraft. Coolly, Terry agrees with the plan, joking that the landing will be like an arranged date. Meanwhile, on Tobias's plane, the people who were sick and passed out before wake up again after Eric does some intense things. James runs to the part of the plane where passengers travel more simply, trying to find comfort with his sick wife. Even wanting to stay with her, even with danger, Jess asks him to think more about his safety and his life. You can see the damage that the disease has done, both to Jess and their son. When Eric learns of Tobias's plan to join with Terry and land the plane, he thinks it's risky and decides to disrupt everything. He decides to shut down the plane so it crashes and the disease doesn't spread. Eric goes downstairs and damages everything he sees in the place where they control the plane's systems. The mess this causes is quick, with flashing lights and communication failing a little. But Tobias and Kate quickly fix everything and make it all go back to normal. Meanwhile, Terry finds a safe airport and lands without problems. Happy to see that there are no sick people there, waiting for Tobias to arrive with the joint landing. But their reunion is interrupted when a group of sick and armed people suddenly invades, wanting to hijack the plane to go to Greenland in search of a cure. Quickly, Terry grabs her gun and takes out the group leader before locking herself in the cockpit. Even with Tobias trying to calm her down, Terry, afraid of spreading more disease, asks him not to land, thinking that her sacrifice could prevent more problems. Terry says an emotional goodbye before ending it. Meanwhile, Craig goes looking for Eric and finds him sabotaging a part of the plane. The damage causes strong tremors throughout the plane. Despite Tobias and Kate trying to restart the engines, it still needs urgent repairs. In the midst of chaos, Craig takes a blow to the head from a fire extinguisher and passes out. When Craig wakes up, he doesn't remember anything that happened. Kate is being nice and patient, helping him to calm down. While Craig was unconscious, Tobias managed to land the plane at an airport to fix it and fill it with gas. But the place is on fire outside, showing that sick people are getting close. Larry, who is good with machines, starts fixing the plane while Craig and Kate decide to get gas. Eric keeps insisting that it's better to look for food and a place to stay, but Tobias tells him to shut up, saying he can leave if he doesn't want to help. Tobias sees that the sick crowd will soon reach the plane, so he keeps watching the movement at the airport with binoculars. Meanwhile, Eric is removing the barricades from the infected in the second class. Tobias reaches him and tells him to finish off the infected. The boy hears this and manages to escape while Jess pretends to be dead so as not to be seen. Then she tries to attack Eric. He runs to hide on the wing of the plane. Jess attacked forcefully to save herself. Tobias grabbed a gun to stop her, but James took the gun from him and shot his wife himself to avoid more problems. Meanwhile, Craig and Kate went to a warehouse to get fuel and found something frightening: many sick, dead people inside it. On TV, they showed that the virus has spread to 27 new countries. People are getting irritated with the situation. Scientists blame the drug companies and the overuse of antibiotics. Suddenly, a man appeared near the warehouse. When the two came out, he started shooting at Kate and Craig for no reason. Kate suggested that everyone fly together to Greenland to calm the man down, but he hit Craig and left him unconscious. The man offered Kate shelter, but she refused. After the impact, Craig remembered that Eric sabotaged the plane. They need to get back soon and warn Tobias about the traitor in the group. Meanwhile, James goes out to find gas, taking Eric with him, without realizing the danger he represents. They find a truck with fuel and plan to take everything to the plane quickly. Eric attacks James forcefully, determined to prevent the plane from taking off. Elsewhere in the airport, someone sick watches the plane, passing important information over the radio to their friends. They prepare to steal the plane and fly to Greenland in search of the medicine. Meanwhile, Craig and Kate return to the plane empty-handed, revealing that Eric betrayed them, leaving everyone shocked. Soon after, Eric appears on the plane and lies. saying that James was attacked by sick people, but everyone knows the truth. Eric said he did this to save people and stop the disease. But nobody cares, until Tobias pulls out a gun. After that, Eric leaves and the friends lock themselves in the plane, waiting for Larry to fix everything. Staying at the airport is no longer possible. Even without gas, they think about leaving. But Larry is taking time to fix the plane, and the infected are approaching as it gets dark. Eric takes some flares and lights them on the roof of the airport to attract the infected, preventing the departure to Greenland. Tobias sees the infected getting close to the plane and also sees James. He hadn't died and is driving the gas truck. But the infected enter the cabin and kill James, even with Kevin trying to help. It was too late. The sick move away and Tobias ends up finding an injured, infected person. He lets the infected person go and asks them not to come back anymore. Eric continues with the flares to attract even more infected to the plane. Tobias asks Craig to stop Eric and turn off the flares, and Craig agrees if Tobias promises not to leave without him. The captain promised Craig that he would wait for him to return without changing his mind. Larry understands that it's urgent to fix everything before the infected attack, but he is sick and needs to take breaks, and it's also difficult to fix with just one hand. Kevin goes to fill the plane with fuel. Near the airport, many infected are gathering, and soon there will be more armed and wanting to take the plane. As Craig tries to reach Eric, he continues launching flares that help the infected find them. Eric seems not to care that this only makes the infected go to Greenland. Luckily, they are almost done filling the plane. Tobias is preparing to fly and asked Kate to turn on the runway lights. Suddenly, the infected attack Kevin while he is filling the plane. Tobias takes action and fights with them on the runway. The infected don't want to kill him because they need him to pilot. After a bit of fighting, Tobias manages to get the gun and convinces the infected to surrender, and kills all the infected, including the man he told not to come back. Meanwhile, Craig finally reaches Eric and fights with him. Then, Eric beats up Craig and puts things on the runway. Craig gets up and goes back to fighting with Eric, then tries to remove the things from the runway so that the plane can depart because he believes that Tobias will wait for him. Kate turns on the runway lights and then goes to the plane. Nearby, Maria is lying next to her husband. She decides to stay at the airport with him. Kate enters the place where the pilots sit and sees that Tobias is determined to leave without waiting for Craig, even though Craig helped to remove the things from the runway. She likes Craig a lot, so she asks Tobias to wait for him, but Tobias decides to leave anyway, even after Kate tells him that David died because of Tobias's insensitive decision. Kate becomes desperate and points a gun at Tobias. Even so, he tries to start the plane, causing Kate to fire, but the gun is empty when she tries to shoot. Tobias smiles, not caring about Kate's attempt, and she leaves the pilot's place. Meanwhile, Craig, not knowing he was left behind, runs toward the plane, but discovers that it has already taken off, leaving him alone and anguished. Sitting on the grass, Craig holds his head in his hands when suddenly Kate approaches him, abandoning the plane to stay by his side. With only Tobias and Larry inside the plane, the infected mechanic goes to the cockpit, realizing how his health is worsening as the virus spreads. Now Tobias is alone on the plane, with the imminent risk of becoming infected. And so the film ends. What do you find more frightening, the virus or the wickedness of people? Share your opinion in the comments below, and don't forget to activate the bell to be notified of new recaps. So until next time,